Welcome, dear friends, to the Crimson Academy's course on Release the Sun by William Sears. We will be reading the Release the Sun in honor of the bicentenary of the birth of the Blessed Bob. Dear friends, in this first section, we will be reading the foreword and prologue and chapter 1. Foreword. The following is the first in a series of 3 books, which will tell the stories of the central figures of the Baha'I faith. This book, Release the Sun, gives the early history of the Baha'I faith up through the hour of the martyrdom of its herald, the Bab. Professor Edward Granville Brown of Pembroke College, Cambridge University, wrote of this period in history saying, "I am very anxious to get as accurate an account of all the details connected with the faith of the Bab as possible, for in my eyes the whole story seems one of the most interesting and important events that has occurred since the rise of Christianity, and I feel it my duty, as well as my pleasure, to try as far as in me lies to bring the matter to the notice of my countrymen. For suppose anyone could tell us more about the childhood and earthly life and appearance of Christ. For instance, how glad we should be to know it. Now it is impossible to find out much, but in the case of the Bab it is possible. So let us earn the thanks of posterity, and provide against that day now. This is an attempt to bring just such an account of the life of the Bab to the attention of the world. This same story has been set down in everlasting language for the scholar in Nabil's narrative, The Dawnbreakers, and in God Passes By, written by Shohe Effendi Rabbani, the guardian of the Baha'i faith. Release the Sun does not present all of the drama of this epic, nor does it give word for word the exciting stories told during these memorable days. It merely offers a simplified version of a story too long neglected and overlooked by man in his search for peace of mind and satisfaction of soul. William Sears, Wilkespriet, Transvaal, South Africa, September 1957. Prologue. A small whirlwind of dust moved quietly down the deserted street. It whipped a scrap of paper against a sleeping cat, frightening it out of the doorway into the house. Then all was motionless silence. Suddenly a young child hurried around the corner and raced down the empty street. His bare feet kicked up little puffs from hot earth. "He's coming!" he cried out. "They're bringing him this way." People streamed from their houses with the panic of ants whose hill has been struck by a careless foot. The street was alive with thrilled and expectant faces. Their excitement increased as they had heard the angry shouts of the approaching mob. A river of men, women, and children flowed noisily around the corner. The young man they were following was overwhelmed by their insults. The mob cried out with delight. They knew he would not escape them. He was a captive. His guards pulled him along in front of the crowd by a long rope tied to an iron collar, which was fastened about his neck. He was being taken to the authorities so that his death warrant might be signed. When he faltered in his steps, the guards helped him on his feet, by jerking savagely on the rope or by planting a well-aimed kick. Occasionally someone would dart out of the crowd, break through the guards, and strike the young man with a fist or a stick. Cheers of pleasure and encouragement accompanied each attacker. When a stone or a piece of refuse hurled from the mob struck the young captive in the face, both the guards and the crowd would burst into laughter. "Rescue yourself, O great hero," one of the pursuers called mockingly. "Break asunder your bonds. Produce for us a miracle." Then he spat in derision at the silent figure. The young man was returned to the barrack square, then a short time later was led to his place of execution. It was high noon in the public square of a sun-baked city. The blistering summer sun flashed from the barrels of the raised muskets. The guns were pointed at the young man's breast. The soldiers awaited the command to fire and take his life. Great crowds were still pouring into the public square. Thousands swarmed along the adjoining rooftops, overlooking the scene of death. They were all hungry for one last look at this strange young man who had so troubled their country. He was either good or evil. They were not sure which. He seemed so young to die, barely 30. Now that the end had come, this victim of all their hatred did not seem dangerous at all. He appeared helpless and gentle, yet confident and handsome. There was a look of contentment, even of eagerness, on his face as he gazed calmly into the hostile barrels of 750 cocked rifles. Chapter 1. The Promise of the Messiah. This is the story of a modern search for the Holy Grail, the cup of everlasting life. It began in the land from which the three kings came to Bethlehem, guided by a bright star. It was now the 19th century, and there was another sign in the heavens, a great fiery comet. Many were awed, many were frightened, many were cheered, for both the East and the West were caught up in a millennial zeal. In Persia, home of the three wise men, the excitement over the coming of a Messiah was greater than in any other land. In America and Europe, scholars wrote and spoke of the expected appearance of the promised Christ. But in Persia, many people were actively searching for him. They believed the promised one to be already in their midst. Among these devout searchers was Sheikh Ahmad, a kindly gentleman. At the age of 40, he left his home and kindred in one of the islands to the south of the Persian Gulf and set out to unravel the mystery of the coming messenger. An inner voice kept urging him on. Eagerly he devoured everything written on the subject. He questioned the great religious and scientific authorities until he felt that at last he knew the truth. He was now filled with an eagerness to unburden his soul. He began to search for someone with whom he could share his great secret, his certainty of the time and place for the appearance of God's new messenger, who would fulfill all the promises given in the sacred books. Sheikh Ahmad made his way on foot to the city of Shiraz in southern Persia. Often and passionately in his public talks, he extolled that city. Such was the praise he lavished upon Shiraz that his hearers, who were only too familiar with its mediocrity, were astonished at the tone of his language. Wonder not, Sheikh Ahmed told them. Before long, the secret of my words will be made clear to you. A number of you will live to behold the glory of a day which all the prophets of old have foretold and have yearned to witness. There was no one to whom Sheikh Ahmed was able to pour out his knowledge in its entirety. He feared what the people might do to the one whose coming had set his heart on fire. He knew he must wait patiently until a kindred soul appeared with whom he could share his secret. During those days, a young man named Sayyid Kazem was already on his way to visit Sheikh Ahmed. He had heard of this great man and thought perhaps Sheikh Ahmed himself might be the promised one. Sayyid Kazem lived near a famous tomb near Ardabil. One night, in a dream, he was told to arise and put himself under the spiritual guidance of Sheikh Ahmed, whom he would find residing at Yazd. Sayyid Kazem began his journey to Yazd at once. When he reached his destination, Sheikh Ahmed greeted him affectionately. I welcome you, O my friend. How long and how eagerly I have awaited for your coming. To him, Sheikh Ahmed confided all that he knew. He urged Sayyid Kazem to kindle in every receptive heart the fire that burned so brightly in his own. You have no time to lose, Sheikh Ahmed warned him. Every fleeting hour should be fully and wisely used. Strive night and day to remove the veils of prejudice and orthodoxy that have blinded the eyes of men, for verily I say, the hour is drawing nigh. By devoting his special attention to his followers, Sheikh Ahmad hoped to enable them to become active supporters of the cause of the Promised One when he appeared. Sheikh Ahmad knew that the hour of his own death was approaching, so he called his followers together. After me, he said, seek for the truth through Sayyid Kazem. He alone understands my objective. Sheikh Ahmad died soon after, and Sayyid Kazem became the leader of his followers. Sayyid Kazem also found that there was no one sincere enough or worthy enough to hear all that Sheikh Ahmad had taught him. His followers were still tied to their homes, their families, their money, their businesses, their former beliefs. If the coming Promised One will exalt us and preserve all we hold dear, they told Sayyid Kazem, then we are ready, nay, eager to accept. But if his coming means forsaking all we cherish, and perhaps even facing death, then our ears are deaf to the sweet music. At long last, Sayyid Kazem found one young man in whom he could place the greatest trust. The youth's name was Mullah Hussein. Such was the love and honor that Sayyid Kazem bestowed upon Mullah Hussein, that some among his companions suspected that Mullah Hussein might be the promised one to whom their master was unceasingly referring, the one whom he so often declared to be even now living in their midst, unrecognized by them all. You behold him with your own eyes, Sayyid Kazem told them, and yet recognize him not. Mullah Hussein returned Sayyid Kazem's great love and respect. At times he himself secretly wondered whether or not Sayyid Kazem might be the one they awaited. Mullah Hussein, however, had a standard by which he planned to test whoever made such a stupendous claim. He would ask that a commentary be written about the story of Joseph, a certain chapter in the sacred scripture, and written in a style and language entirely different from the prevailing standards. One day, Mullah Hussein in private asked Sayyid Kazem to write such a commentary. Sayyid Kazem refused. This verily is beyond me, he said. However, he, that great one, who comes after me, will, unasked, reveal it for you. That commentary will constitute one of the clearest evidences of his truth. Mullah Hussein asks Sayyid Kazem why this chapter was called the best of stories in their holy book. Sayyid Kazem replied, "It is not the proper occasion for explaining the reason." His words hinted that the future would unveil this truth. Another among his followers felt that Sayyid Kazem, in spite of his denials, was the one foretold. He went so far as to declare this publicly. Sayyid Kazem was most displeased. He would have cast the speaker out of the company of his own chosen followers had he not begged for forgiveness. My knowledge is but a drop compared to the immensity of his knowledge, Sayyid Kazem asserted. My attainments are but a speck of dust in the face of the wonders of his power. When Sayyid Kazem made this forthright denial, still another of his followers was very distressed, for he, too, had believed Sayyid Kazem to be the great announced figure. He prayed earnestly to God, either to confirm the feeling in his heart or to deliver him from such a fancy. The manner in which he was assisted is recorded in his own words. One day, at the hour of dawn, we went to the house of Sayyid Kazem. He was fully dressed in his best attire and was about to leave. He asked me to accompany him. He said, "A highly esteemed and distinguished person has arrived. I feel it necessary that we both should visit him." The sun had just appeared as we reached our destination. In the doorway stood a youth. His face revealed an expression of humility and kindliness, which I can never describe. He quietly approached us, extended his arms toward Sayyid Kazem, and lovingly embraced him. His friendliness contrasted strongly with the profound reverence which Sayyid Kazem showed him. He led us to an upper chamber. A silver cup had been placed in the center of the room. After we were seated, our host filled the cup and handed it to Sayyid Kazem. He spoke a verse from our holy book. "A drink of pure beverage shall their Lord give them." How great was my amazement when I saw my teacher, Sayyid Kazem, quaff, without the least hesitation, that holy draught from a silver cup, the use of which is forbidden to the faithful. 3 days later, I saw that same young man arrive and take his seat amidst assembled followers of Sayyid Kazem. He sat close to the doorway, and with great modesty and dignity of bearing, he listened to the discourse of Sayyid Kazem. As soon as Sayyid Kazem saw him, he immediately discontinued speaking. One of his followers begged him to resume his talk about the coming of the Promised One. "What more shall I say?" replied Sayyid Kazim, as he turned his face toward the young man. "Lo, the truth is more manifest than the ray of light that has fallen on that lap." I immediately observed that the ray of sunlight to which Sayyid Kazim referred had fallen upon the lap of that same youth we had so recently visited. One of Sayyid Kazim's followers asked, "Why is it that you neither reveal his name nor identify his person? Why?" Sayyid Kazim replied that if we were to divulge his name, both the beloved of God and he himself would be put to death instantly. I saw Sayyid Kazim actually point out with his finger the ray of light that had fallen on that lap, and yet none of those who were present seemed to apprehend its meaning. I was convinced that some mystery inscrutable to us all lay concealed in that strange and attractive youth. I often felt the urge to seek his presence, but every time I ventured an approach, a force I could neither explain nor resist detained me. My inquiries elicited the information that he was a resident of Shiraz and a merchant by profession. He had set my heart aflame, and the memory of him haunted me. Sayyid Kazem became increasingly aware of the approach of the hour at which the Promised One was to be revealed. There is conclusive evidence that he referred time and again to this event. He was fond of saying, "I see him as the rising sun." He realized how thick the veils were that prevented even his own followers from understanding the truth. He kept warning them, as John the Baptist had warned those who awaited Christ. The kingdom of God is at hand. With care and wisdom, he gradually began to remove all the barriers that might stand in the way of their full recognition of that hidden treasure when it appeared. "Beware lest after my departure the world's fleeting vanities beguile you," he cautioned them. "Renounce all comfort, all earthly possessions and kindred in your quest of him. Detach yourselves from all earthly things and humbly beseech God to guide you. Never relax in your determination to seek and find him. Be firm until the day he will choose you as his companions. Well is it with every one of you who will drink the cup of martyrdom in his path." Sayyid Kazim promised some of his followers that they would not only have the joy of seeing the coming messenger of God face to face, they would see his successor as well. For soon after the first trumpet blast, there shall be sounded yet another call, and all things shall be quickened and revived. Repeatedly, Sayyid Kazem told them that they would see not one, but two messengers of God, the twin revelations promised in all the holy books. For these last days, these two successive messengers would be the fulfillment of the prophecy of the second and third woe mentioned in the book of Revelation of St. John, which prophesies that the third woe would quickly follow the second woe. They would also be the fulfillment of the two trumpet blasts mentioned in the Quran, which in the last days would quickly follow each other. Sayyid Kazim assured his followers that after the promised dawn, the promised sun would be made manifest. For when the star of the former has set, he said, the sun of the latter will rise and illuminate the whole world. His followers, Sayyid Kazem pointed out, were living in the very day of the prophecy which was fulfilled by these words. In the year 1260, 1844, the earth shall be illumined by his light. If thou livest until the year 1270, 1853, thou shalt witness how the nations, the rulers, the peoples, and the faith of God shall all have been renewed. In the last year of his life, Sayyid Kazem left the city of Karbala to visit the holy shrines nearby. He stopped at a prayer house beside the highway to offer his noonday devotions. He was standing beneath the shade of a palm when suddenly an Arab appeared. He approached Sayyid Kazem and spoke to him. 3 days ago I was shepherding my flock in an adjoining pasture, he told Sayyid Kazem. All of a sudden, sleep overtook me. The Prophet appeared to me in my sleep. He said to me, "Give ear to my words, O shepherd. Stay within the precincts of this prayer house. In 3 days a man, Sayyid Kazem by name, will arrive accompanied by his friends. Tell him from me, rejoice, for the hour of your departure is at hand. In Karbala, 3 days after your return there, you will wing your flight to me. Soon after shall he who is the truth be made manifest. Then shall the world be illumined by the light of his face." The year 1260 in the calendar of Islam is the year 1844 of the Christian calendar. 1270 is equivalent to 1853. The companions of Sayyid Kazem were saddened by the thought of his approaching death. He comforted them with these words: "Is not your love for me really for the sake of that true one whose coming we all await? Would you not wish me to die that the promised one may be revealed?" To his last breath, Sayyid Kazem urged his followers to persevere in their search. He returned to Karbala, and on the day he arrived, he became ill. 3 days later, he died.